You guys cleaning up in here? Is it coming out all right? Put you guys on detailing. Looks like I came in at break time and play time. I don't know what I'm paying you guys for. Huh? I don't know, guys. Welcome back, guys, to part 2 of our budget big block revival. So today we're going to do injectors. If you saw in the last video, you'll see that when this thing was under a load, this engine would sit there and shake real bad, shake the whole truck. So what I figured out is it's cylinder 8. I think it's on this side. I'm not well versed on these gas engines. But anyway, cylinder 8 has good compression. It has a spark. So that leaves us with no fuel going to that cylinder. So seems like a pretty straightforward job. Injectors live under here, under the upper plenum. And you can see there's one of the injectors. They appear original. I wouldn't doubt it. And they're bad, which I read a lot about that too. So one important thing before you start a project like this is always read the directions. So let me pull it up. Happen to have factory service manual on my phone, or one of them, and it gives you all the torque specs, pretty well everything to do it right. Not saying finding it on Facebook or a forum is wrong, but I'm going to trust the service manual before I trust the guy that heard it from 4 other guys before him, and you know how that gets all jumbled up. So what I went ahead and went with for injectors, being it's a budget build, so I went with these guys. I saw lots of good reviews on them. These are for a 305 TPI engine. Apparently they're a good upgrade for these from what I did read. There was a lot of people saying that they worked out real well, got better fuel mileage, smoother engine. But the only that concerns me is these flow 19 pounds per hour at 3 bar. This thing makes 4 bar fuel pressure, and supposedly these will flow 20 to 21 pounds, I think pounds per hour, and the old black box can compensate. I don't know, we're gonna find out. If not, I can tune it back down with HP tuners, or I can do a 411 swap. So follow along. We'll get injectors in this thing and a fuel pressure regulator because you're already there, and we'll see if we make it run good. So your biggest hurdle, especially if you're in the rust belt, is going to be this guy right here. It's your EGR pipe. It goes from the exhaust manifold up to the intake, and it's a bear to get off, from what I read anyway. So I believe it's a 1 5/16. I'm not sure. I have a trick up my sleeve on how I'm going to do it, so we'll see if my idea works. Using a needle nose vice grip. It's pretty thin. That'll get that thin nut that's right there. And you want to get it tight because supposedly it's super tight. I don't know, I've never done this. And then this is where I'm cheating. Using an 18-inch adjustable wrench. So, kind of wiggle that on there. And the EGR in this truck, I believe, is shut off. Because you can unplug the valve and drive around and it doesn't ever set a code for EGR flow or anything of that nature. I will put the right size wrench in the down below or somewhere. Oh wow. So it's not supposed to be that easy, but it just came off. So that makes me wonder if this hasn't been apart before. Because everything I read was this thing is extremely difficult to remove. But here I am. Yeah. So I didn't bust this loose before, I promise. Oh well, maybe I spoke too soon. It got bound up. I didn't hit it with heat or anything, as you saw. I just put my hand on it. Huh. Very cool. That was the part I've been dreading on this whole job, is this EGR pipe. Done deal. That was easy. So next up, what I'm going to do, remove the air box, little intake muffler, I believe that's what it is, the whole intake, and start breaking anything that's attached to this thing loose. I believe my coil and my ICM are at the back. We'll have to get them off. And after that, it seems like it's pretty straightforward. I think so far we're in this job for about 20 minutes. Maybe I'm just at the easy parts, I don't know, but I'll set you guys down and let you guys watch me mess with this. Alright guys, so like I said, we'll start removing this intake. I know you probably can't see my face, but I'm trying to make it to where you guys can see what I'm working on. 719, maybe this thing hadn't been sitting as long as I thought, or was told. So we don't need this, I have a new one, you can see, pretty bad. Yeah, I know, I'll wipe this out, because I'll probably get dirt in the engine. So probably can leave that. So you guys get stumped on this cruise control cable. I don't know what the right way of doing it is, so I moved this deal out of the way. It's kind of there. And I went in there with the screwdriver, very gently pried it off. Like I said, I don't know what the right way is to get that off. I didn't want to break it, so it was real gentle and it worked. And then this deal, I kind of cheated because I didn't want to strip that off. It's a little bit rusty. So as you can tell, anyone that works on cars knows what that is, the vice grip marks. So I just grabbed it down here, loosened it up. We'll untwist it, get all this out of the way, and we'll continue on. So if you saw me struggling, that is why. That's a piece of glass lodged in there. So I'll have to pick that out. That's the only bolt holding me from getting this intake off. But that threw me for a curve. I thought it was this deal holding me on, or in my way, but nope. Just a little shard of glass. Maybe I won't have to pick it out. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? We're doing so good too. Well, there we go, guys. It's pretty nasty in there. A little bit of oil. I mean, it's not terrible. It reeks of stale gas. But otherwise, that wasn't a bad job. There's our distributor. So, here's the infamous fuel rail that they say is really hard to do. So I'm gonna look it over, see what I need to do, kind of clean up a little bit around here, and we'll go from there. So I'm all alone on this project as far as filming goes, so I'm gonna do the best I can. My camera girl decided her day job paid better or something like that, so here we are, fumbling away with the camera. Anyway, if I had her day job, I'd probably go to it anyway too. So what I've been doing is I just push down on these with a screwdriver, and then with my other hand, you know, just wiggle it back and forth while I'm pushing on it. So not hard. And then on these, this is the deal, everybody says that super hard. All I've been doing is just very gently walking it off of there. These are the clips that hold it on. So if you break these nubs and go back with the OE style, you won't really have any way of, well, they say you won't have any way of holding the injectors in. I don't know, I've never done these before. This is my first time. And we're not going back with OE style, hopefully. So, yeah, just a tip. That's why I figured out how to get these off. Just be real gentle. And just kind of walk them off little by little. And I won't let it go all the way off because it will fling away, and I don't want it to end up in the intake track or something. Okay guys, so just some quick tips before I pull the rail off. So you'll have to take the cap off, be able to get to the fuel pressure regulator and all that. So there's a bolt there that holds this whole assembly and the main feed line to the rail. As you can see, it runs back in there. So you'll have that bolt, and then I don't know if I can get it, there's a bolt right under there, right under the distributor. I don't want to pull the distributor yet because I have one coming and I don't want to do it twice, but there's a bolt under there, and that is what holds on that entire, where is it? I lost it, there it is. This entire fuel rail bracket deal. As you can see, it moves freely now. So here's old versus new. I didn't really film it because it's on a good angle, but I'll show you what's involved. So when you pull it apart, chances are it'll be like this in the bore. So you need to make sure you pull this out, this piece out, and that little O-ring out of there before you go and try to jam that in there. And that's where it lives, right in there. And as you can see, try to get you in there, that middle hole, you need to be real careful that the O-ring's not stuck in there. You pull it out without scratching the housing. Pull out your screen. I flushed it out with some brake cleaner. And then make sure you lather up those O-rings with some oil. And then just slide it in. Make sure your snap ring seats too, because it has about, I think, 60 pounds of pressure behind it. And another thing too is make sure you plug in your vacuum reference line to the regulator. That's what kind of controls the pressure when it's on vacuum or acceleration. So make sure that's clean, and then make sure the hose isn't bad. I went and got a piece of fuel injection line. It's fuel rated, so it should hold up to the gas. So there's your finished product. We got the clip that goes on it, got the snap ring in, got the new line. Make sure it's not kinked. This one might slightly be kinked. I might have to shave it down. But that's not a big deal. That's what it looks like when it's assembled. Make sure you have this on the right way. The shallow part goes on the smaller diameter of the regulator. But yeah, that's all there is to it. And another thing too is check the play and distributor. In my opinion, this is a lot of play, but that's all right. I have another one that's on the way. I just didn't pull it because, you know, I don't want to do it twice. But anyway, That's all there is to that. So next we'll work on getting our injectors in. So now over to the good part. Install the injector. So like I said, make sure you always read the directions. So this is saying it wants them in the OEM intake first and then the rail on it. And that they don't require the clips. So the ones I broke on there, like I said, they aren't a big deal. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna put a lot of oil on the bottom of these O-rings. What we're gonna do, like I said, we're gonna slide them in the bore and see how it goes. So what I'm doing, I'm just dipping them into the oil. And then going straight into the bore. And they just kind of sit there. It's like the instructions said. So it seems simple enough. We'll leave up the top O-rings. Like I said, I'm doing this one-handed, so this shot might come out all messed up. But it's okay. You get the point. So yeah. So focus, I have these adapters on them. Why don't you focus? There you go. So they have these adapters on them, and that's what makes them fit, be the right height. Looks like a Bosch number on there. So yeah, I'll go ahead and get these in. I'll try to set you guys up so you can watch me either be successful or not successful. We'll find out. Wasn't the easiest. They kept falling over because where they mount the head's pretty shallow with those spacers, but they're in. And like the instructions said, they wiggle back and forth. So next thing I'm gonna do is hit the ignition. Gonna pressure it up, see if we have any leaks. Got the rail in, got the connectors, the harness all on. Everything fits like they said it should fit. So I know you guys, someone will probably gripe, well, why didn't you clean it? You could have done cleaner. It looks real sloppy. Stuff could fall on the intake, you know. So the reason I didn't wash it was I didn't want to get water on the distributor and all the other electrical components. This has had a lot of oil leaks, so most of this stuff's pretty rigid as far as you're not going to knock it off unless you really try. Down here, I doused it with brake cleaner. I got the rail clean and everything to try to minimize stuff falling into the injectors. Think I succeeded? I don't know. We'll find out. And then the reason I didn't do these is, you know, if you go to the dealership, they're not going to take the time to put rags or stuff in them. And you got to realize the stuff that's airborne is a lot less than this crap that's already in the intake that, you know, bits and pieces will fall in as you drive throughout the vehicle's life. Doesn't hurt it. If anything did fall into the runner, well, then I'd deal with it. But that's the risk I assumed, and so far, I've done okay. So we'll go clean up the manifold, the upper plenum, and slap it back on. So on a whim, I decided, you know, I've gone this far, let's go and pull off the intake, the lower intake, and it's a good thing I did. This thing's pretty nasty. I still got to do some cleaning. And sorry I didn't video taking it off. It was like a last minute idea and I just yanked it off. I'll go back, when I go back together, I'll show you, you know, what to look for and pretty well how it comes apart. So I've been told this thing probably wasn't maintained very well, and I would guess that that is correct. This thing is very nasty inside. This is some of what I shoveled out of here. That's all carbon and stuff. And that just came from inside. And this is the worrying part. So this was the coolant passages on the intake. And they are non-existent. So how this thing didn't have coolant in the oil is kind of surprising. Yeah, I mean, it just came apart when I pulled it off. But it was in bad shape. Someone has replaced these in the past, I can tell, but you know, it's a 23-year-old truck. I guess these things don't last very well. And it's sad because this is like planned obsolescence. They do this knowing that, you know, people keep adding oil or adding coolant until the crankcase is full of coolant and it spins a bearing. Kind of another reason why I don't like these GM products. And I'm sure you've heard it in my other videos if you watched them, that I'll never buy another GM, which this one was kind of given to me in a roundabout way. And I like to drive it, but you know, engineering like this, it's a real shame because it's a really nice truck. But I don't think it hurt this one. Still runs, drives, has oil pressure, so I think I caught it in time. So I'll show you the intake. That one's kind of questionable. So sorry if it's windy. It's a pretty windy day again. So here is the coolant passage on the intake manifold, the lower. And it is right at the limit to where you could, one more, I think next time it uses intake gaskets, I don't think you can reuse this one. It's pretty rough. Again, yeah, they say, well, coolant's supposed to be, you know, maintenance item and all this and that, but, you know, other than semis getting pinholes and liners, I don't remember this stuff happening to the old school stuff. This is from the deck school, the orange that we would have had when it was new. So, yeah. Oh, and I did take it off with the rail, which I'll show you how I did that when we go together with it. Just running everything over here. So yeah, again on this side, pretty bad, but it'll seal up. I'll clean it up some more before I slap it on. The front should look like that. I did put the gasket on it. I'll do it again to show you. So it's probably right on the limit. You couldn't use it again, or I don't think you could use this intake again in a couple more gasket sets if this truck lives that long. So I wasn't going to spend $550 on another manifold. It would always bother me if I tried to let this go thinking it would seal. And I really didn't want to let some dumb cost-cutting engineer ruin my day, because, you know, yeah, this happens when you neglect it, but still, having it to where it dumps in the coolant, or the coolant into the oil, is really stupid. So, got it cleaned up, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to build it up a little bit with some JB Weld. Enough to where, you know, fill this in, fill these in. Enough where it won't leak in the oil and just spin a bearing or kill this whole engine. And all I did was I used this and just went in there, cleaned it up. When I stopped getting white powders when I moved on. And I don't know if it'll focus, but it was really hard. It's really hard to get to good metal in there. So I need to do some more cleaning, but I don't think there's really any good metal in this intake. It's really just made of some real crap material. And I know people will say, well, if you change the coolant and blah, 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 well, yeah, but explain how I've had Cummins and Toyotas and Fords that had gone 400,000 or 500,000 on the original components and look like new, where this has half the miles and it just looks terrible. So anyway, enough of my ranting. I'm gonna see if the JB Weld will work, clean it up a little bit more, and we'll come back. So the JB Weld didn't cure overnight. It was about 45 degrees, and I guess that wasn't warm enough for it, so we're speeding up the process here. Got the heater cranked up on high, and what I've been doing is I'll alternate, let it go on one side for an hour, then the other, and it's got hot air flowing through it, so they're both getting warm air, just one side's getting hotter than the other, but it's all getting cured up at the same time. Got the cookie sheet here, kind of keep a hot air as a heat shield out of the runners and off the injectors. Probably pointless, but you know, my luck. this stupid thing would probably melt them, just because that's usually how things go. That's too hot to the touch, so it gets pretty warm. So hopefully a couple more hours of this, it'll be rock solid, and then we can go on to the next step. Alright guys, so a few hours with the heater, and here's the end result. Nice and cured JB Weld. So what I did to get to this point, we'll start at the beginning, was I bought JB Quick Weld in the syringe. Reason I went with the syringe was should come out perfectly mixed, unlike the tubes where you gotta guess and you might have it wrong, or each batch is a little bit different than the other. So once I did that, mixed it all up, I just kept glopping it on little by little and working with it. And as it dried, it got like Play-Doh, so when it started getting where you could work with it, kind of did the old Bob Ross painting method and just kind of just did this until it would stay put. It took about 30 minutes, but it was worth it. And then here's the end result, kinda. I still need to fill a couple of these in with more JB Weld, but you know, it worked out, came out good. Take a straight edge to the whole side of it, and it's pretty darn flat, even when you go this way. And the way I did that was no power tools. So I used some 120 grit, knocked off all the tall parts. And then I went with some 320, wrapped it in a knife sharpening block so it's flat. I got plenty of these, so it's not a real loss. And just went in a circular motion and kept checking it ever so often with the straight edge to make sure it wasn't way off. But it seems to have turned out all right. Don't recommend power tools. I was going to use this, that's 36 grit, to speed up the process. But one wrong move and you could really wreak havoc. So just have some patience, go slow, and the end result will be worth it. Well, here it is, all done. So this one was the one that was real bad, and I finally was able to get it. Tried to mill it out the best I can. It looks pretty crude, but you know, I freehanded it and took a straight edge, and it's actually pretty straight. So I guess it corroded so much that this was off compared to the rest of the manifold. Oops, almost dropped it. So got that all cleaned up. That had some minor pitting. Threw some RTV in there and let it cure. I think it'll be okay. We got most of this cleaned off. I still have to go through, do one more, you know, just wipe down, but other than that, it's not bad. Here's the other side. And I didn't want to take too much off because I didn't want to end up back at square one. You can kind of see where the gasket rides. Pretty close right there, but I think it'll work. We'll find out. So I just kind of doused this thing down with brake cleaner to get the JB Weld dust off it. But I think it'll be okay. All right, so I got the manifold in. It's sitting there with a few bolts in. So one thing that's important to realize is the manual calls for Loctite. Not thread sealant, but Loctite. So yeah, I had to get creative. I was a little low. So what I used was blue Loctite. So in the future, if it has to come apart again, I'm not having to fight it. Someone before me had a combination of red Loctite and loose bolts. So some of them are real hard to get off and some of them were finger tight. I'm gonna go ahead and go with this. I'm not sure if these bolts go into a water jacket or not. Couldn't tell. I think a couple of them do. But I did all of them. So I'm gonna screw them in, get them snug down, then we're gonna torque them. Here's what the manual states. That's the torquing sequence. And it says 22 the first time, foot-pounds the first time, 30 foot-pounds the second time. I'm gonna go ahead and follow those directions. I've done it in the past where you just slap them on and tighten them, but I wanna do this one right. So as promised, the way I got that bolt way under there without taking the entire fuel rail off was I used these square head Milwaukees, and I believe the 17 millimeter, and I'll use one of these kind of for reference. So I put it on top, and it's got to be a stubby one, by the way. Stubby 14, put it on top, use a 17 millimeter wrench, I believe, to break it loose. And then once it was loose, I just used a 1/4 inch short 13 and spun it off. And I guess with all the moving around and placing it on stuff, I guess I kind of bent it a little, something you need to be careful of, because I was able to get a 3/8 on there. But that's how I pulled it off without pulling off the fuel rail. And then, you know, you got to put your grounds and stuff back on, make sure you plug everything in. But really, it's straightforward. Kind of a pain. Make sure all your bolts are started in, not just sitting there, because I had trouble with a couple of these. A little bit hard to see, but I made 2 marks. So those current marks that aren't quite lined up, when they're lined up, that's where the rotor was when it was pulled out. And when I put it back in, this mark should be aligned right there. So before you pull them, make sure you mark them. I failed to mark the actual distributor, but I got a picture, so I have a rough idea where it goes. But that's okay, because it's got the 1349 code, which we're gonna have to do the cam offset, get it, you know, spot on. But I'll put it in, get it enough to run, and hopefully I did it right. Well guys, the sun went down on me. Kind of got it buttoned up enough to run. I'll go over, you know, how I torqued it, all that good stuff tomorrow. About to go fire it up and see if it'll even run. I don't know if you can see, but you know, we're parked in dirt. Monsoon season's supposed to start tomorrow. Well, I call it that, it's just supposed to rain. So probably either pull this thing in the garage or pull it up front or something. And we'll finish up all the loose ends tomorrow. We'll go jump in this thing, see if it even starts or what. I know, well, I don't know. I think the timing's off of 2s, but it might be enough to make it run. We'll find out here in a sec. All right, first start. I already primed it up when I put the lower intake on, make sure I didn't have any leaks before I buttoned it all up. So we'll see what we'll do, see if any tools get flung by the fan. As I can tell, timing's off. I think anyway. All right, take 2. Helps when your coil's actually plugged in. You can tell the timing's off. So it's 10 p.m. and I guess like 7th time's the charm. It's not real happy, but it does sound a whole lot better than it did. So I'm gonna clean up, move this thing up front, call it a night. Timing's still kind of off. I had to crank it all the way counterclockwise to get it to run. It's like a unicorn, has 1 light on top. But yeah, we'll mess with it in the morning. We'll see what that check engine light is. Probably a bunch of stuff I unplugged. Oh yeah, and before I forget, make sure you change the oil before you go on your first test drive. The way that lower valley is, the whole engine's pretty well open. It's like open heart surgery. And no telling what kind of stuff falls in when you're pulling the manifold off or when it's sitting there. Doesn't matter how clean you wash it, you steam clean this thing for 5 hours and you'll still have something fall in there. So, just a quick tip. Before you test drive it, change the oil. So she's all done, buttoned up. I didn't film any because we've had rain off and on. Kind of weird weather for a couple days before Christmas. So anyway, so got it all back together. Mostly, 99%. So what I ended up doing, like I said, I'll go over this with you. The bolts on the upper plenum were first pass 71 inch-pounds, second pass 13 foot-pounds. And it said to use thread lock, not sealant, thread lock on at least 8 threads, so I use, you know, the blue thread locker. It's pretty straightforward, came apart just like it went back on. So the hardest thing you'll have to deal with is this little dude back here. Maybe you can see it, but the distributor. Before you take the engine apart, and this is where I screwed up, make sure you're on number 1 top dead center. And the way we achieved it when we finally fixed it is pull the number 1 plug, put your finger on it, and when it blows it off, you're on the compression stroke. Then I stuck either a zip tie or something in there, and I spun it over with the alternator. So once your zip tie quits coming out, or you feel it start to just move back in a hair, you're top dead center. So at that point, and hang on, I got some visual for you. All right, here's your visual, guys. So once you get on top dead center over there, you want your rotor, the rotor should be, tip of it should be right here on the number 1 part of the cap. So if you do that, mark everything, pull out the distributor, you know, do this whole mess and go about your business. And when it comes time to put this back in, this is kind of the tricky part. So when you pull it out, your gear's going to move one way or the other. If you marked everything, you should be good. You should have marked it where the rotor was when it was out, and then where it was when it was sitting in here. And if nothing moved, then all you did was the intake. It should just pop into place. The only thing that'll throw you off is if the distributor base twisted, or you have it twisted one way or the other. On mine, and just kind of what I use for reference, kind of a way to cheat. So if you see the plug and you see how close it is to the fuel pressure regulator, I used my pinky as the space between the regulator and that plug. That's about where it was when it came out. That's where I put it in when I went back in with it the 100th time I did it. So that's about where it needs to be. In my understanding, if you rotate it clockwise, that's advancing, or yeah, counterclockwise I think is advancing, clockwise retards it. So you'll need a scan tool to get it right. The internet says, oh, you can stick it in, it'll be fine. No, to do it right, you need a scan tool. So I'll go show you what we look at. So here on the scan tool, you find cam retard. And you want to get this thing up to about 1,000 RPM. And either with a helper or going back and forth, rotate the distributor a little at a time until you get it to plus or minus 2 degrees from 0. Right now we're at 1 degree. I rev it up. I think very most I saw was 3, but that's acceptable. Otherwise it'll throw the 1345 code. And even though people say, yeah, there's variance, whatever, there's no magic dust in that ECM that'll make up for your timing being off. So make sure you get it right. And I'll do another video when we replace the distributor and show you guys step by step how to do it the right way, not the hack job forum way, or Facebook or MySpace or whatever you guys use nowadays. But that's another video. But that's where we're at now. Truck seems to run okay. And then I'll just kind of go over some stuff with you, and then we'll take it on a test drive. In case you guys are real eagle-eyed, you'll see that some of these harnesses didn't go back on the way they came off. And there's some brackets missing. Well, reason being is a lot of this stuff wasn't even on right to start with. And they had, you know, harnesses way stretched out, stuff pinched. So threw them over there. We zip tied stuff to make it relaxed and keep it out of harm's way. One of the big things is that injector harness. I have no idea where it was supposed to be, where it lives, but it was resting on the EGR tube. And that's no good. So I tied it out of the way. You can see it's already been burned before. Some of this stuff's unplugged because it's tuned out in the ECM. So, don't need that. kind of show you. So, like the brackets, did away with a couple of them. These clips, instructions said don't use any hold down clips, so I didn't. We'll see if the truck burns down. You'll find a few of these distributor screws down in that valley on the intake. Those will go in the glove box because from what I've seen in the past with guys with these trucks, that crap back there will leave you on the side of the road. So always carry spares. These go in the upper intake plenum to hold the gasket in place. So you see there's only 3, there should be 4. This is where some people will be like, OMG, you're gonna destroy your engine. No. So one of these, pretty sure the engine ate it. This engine's probably been running for about 20 minutes. Chances are nothing's gonna happen. I rolled the dice. I've seen what an engine can eat. In fact, I've seen these things eat bolts and nuts and all kinds of stupid stuff, these big blocks, and be a-okay for 50, 60, 70,000 miles in probably the harshest environment you can see. So if you lose one of these in the intake, I don't know on your luck, but it seems like if you just don't flat care, nothing happens. You'll find some interesting stuff in the valley. This was somewhere. So yeah, finished product. I'm not getting coolant in the oil or anything yet. Hopefully I don't. I'm all over the place, I know. We didn't use fancy oil on this since it's a budget build, so I have a pallet of this. Pretty well what it is, it's universal tractor fluids to get differential, transmission, the engine, whatever on a tractor. I put 7 quarts in here, that put it on the full line. None of my stuff's blown up on this. You can see maybe, well, maybe not. One of these says Cat, Cummins, Detroit, DeWitt's, all that good stuff. That can doesn't. But running all my stuff hasn't blown up. I think it's like a 1030, 1040 weight. Everything but that thing. That thing gets used oil. So yeah, that's pretty well it for this. Seems to be running pretty good. I may have to tune those injectors, fiddle with the tune to get it to run a little bit better with those injectors since they're bigger, but it's okay. Got the green filter. That's a microguard. If you don't think that's cool, then we probably can't be friends. And no, microguard isn't like cheap. If it was crap, those big outlet stores like O'Reilly's wouldn't sell it because then they'd have a lot of engines they're buying. So I'm gonna go jump in, take this thing for a quick drive and see if I did any good. So it's first test drive, and I guess we're gonna go through a hailstorm, severe thunderstorm 2 days before Christmas. So let's see how well this goes. First test drive, take 2. Next day, it's a lot drier this time, a lot quieter. So first impressions, this thing runs way better than when I brought it home. Feels like it's got double the power, but probably doesn't. Should get a lot better fuel mileage. I filled up on that last tank with the old injectors and it was steadily going down. The very last tank was 6.8 mpg. And it was mainly just some in-town driving, and I'd say it's probably 20% in-town, 80% highway, which is, I know it's a big block, but come on, that's pretty bad. Did realize after yesterday's short little drive, it'll start when it's hot now. Before, you'd have to put it in clear flood mode, which I think this has, but anyway, matched to the floor is the only way it would sputter to life, and then it was fine. Put out the classic black smoke from being flooded. So we're gonna turn up here, get her up on the highway, and give you guys some driving footage of this thing. All right, here we go. Yeah, before this thing would vibrate so bad that all you would see is just shaking on the camera. Not so bad now. And this cab, considering it says 228, I don't know what this truck really has. It's been pieced together. But the only wind noise I have is the mirror. And that's because it has one bolt holding it in because the rest stripped out. Again, I don't know. I don't even know how you do that. This thing's almost as bad as an impound vehicle with the bizarre stuff that's broken on it. But here we go. So yeah, kind of cheating on the acceleration part. You know, we're going downhill. That's about 68 miles per hour. This truck is so smooth, so quiet. I love this thing better than my 04. Way better truck. We start from a dead stop, and we pretty well just throws you up a little hill, down a hill, and then up a big, short, steep hill. Right now we have a 40-mile-an-hour headwind because the cold front's blowing in, and I'm only, I'd say, half throttle. Really not trying hard. So I'm gonna hit the bottom at 60, give or take 60. Right now we're doing 64. We'll slow it back down. 61 miles an hour. I am half throttle. Totaling 58.5 miles an hour now, so only lost a couple of miles per hour, which isn't bad. This thing blows the doors off my 6.0 LS. Still about half throttle, haven't moved the pedal any. Now we're picking up speed, we're at 62 again. So for half throttle, losing 3-4 miles an hour, I'd say that's pretty good. Quite an improvement, because before it didn't, you had to let out of it because the truck was shaking so bad. I'm gonna go top it off. I've done about 75 miles since I put the injectors in. Top it off and go see what our fuel economy is. So the numbers are in. We went 75 miles on 8.5 gallons, and we got 8.8. Not great, but it is a big block. And to be quite honest, my LS usually gets, I don't know, 11.2, so really not too terrible a difference. I think it'll go up as I'm driving some more. Well, it's been about 1,500 miles since I did that intake and the injectors, and so far it's running pretty well. I threw all that stuff together and then put it on the road right away. The only problem I had was one of the injector O-rings under there started leaking fuel. I think I pinched it when I put it on because they were kind of difficult. But other than that, it hadn't given me any problem. I had to turn the power enrichment off. We turned it up for the customer because he was going to pull, I think, a 3-car gooseneck or something like that. I don't remember what. But I haven't driven it since then, so I don't know if it helped my mileage. I was only getting 8.6 with an empty truck, which I know these get bad, but it shouldn't get that bad. I do have a couple oil leaks, some things I want to do, like delete the oil cooler and fix these power steering lines that are leaking. But we'll do that in another video. The next video is going to be, we're going to work on the interior, do radio, get the gauge cluster going right. Kind of break it up. We'll do one thing, then come back to the engine. You know, just break up the monotony. Yeah, really, I don't have any complaints. It's done me well. I just wanted to kind of give an update. You know, I don't have coolant in the oil or coolant leaks or really any major leaks on here anymore. We've been doing pretty good. Hadn't used any oil. Used oil the first couple trips, and then after that it quit. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe the rings were stuck from sitting. Sorry about the sound quality in that last clip. We have a blizzard rolling in, and it was just too much for the microphone to pick up the running truck, the wind, me babbling. So that's what that was about. So there you have it. Pretty well hack job, whatever you want to call it, repair of this poor truck, and a review. Lasted 1,500 miles so far, which kind of surprised me. I didn't know if it was going to work or not, being it's JB Weld with coolant, but so far it's holding up, so knock on wood. I think I'm doing this right. Anyway, like I said, I'll kind of go back and forth. We'll work on the engine, then like the interior and stuff, then we'll do steering, then we'll do body. Just kind of break up the monotony, but the goal is to have this truck, you know, ready to run down the road anywhere reliably, looking good with, I mean, just the bare amount of money, like you're 16, 17 years old. It can be done without having sponsors or maxing out the credit card, stuff like that. That's the goal anyway, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on part 2. Thanks. You guys enjoying yourselves? It doesn't look any cleaner in here. What have you guys been doing? Huh? Yeah. Hard at work, aren't you?